Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Jessie and this is the Knit Up and Dye podcast, episode 62, Enough. As always, I'm going to start out with a special thanks to all of my subscribers, both new and ongoing. I love you guys, and this is really about you. If there's something that you want to see demonstrated or you'd like me to discuss, please don't hesitate, reach out to me. I love hearing from you, and I always want to make this what you want to see. Hello and welcome this week go out to Christine, Brenda, Rose, Homesteader, Rick, and Erica. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for adding me to your lives. Special love and thanks as always go out to Tiffany, Carol, Kath, Jen, Lemore, Vishon, Marie, Linda, Bex, Wheezy, Cindy, Christy, Neetsy, Charlotte, Chris, Roseanne, Linda, Marie, Leanne, Eve, Linda, David, Donna, Betty Ann, Scott and John, Carolyn, Kate and Terry, Nancy, Rachel, and Cappy. Cappy, thank you for the shout out. I can tell you love that yarn, and I'm thrilled that my technique helped you turn that around. And a warm hello and thank you goes out to all of my patrons. You guys honor me. Thank you. Life. So I'm knitting again, and I'm very excited that I'm knitting again. I didn't do any beading this past week. I worked a little bit on my 1,000 things. 1,000 things is me ridding my house of 1,000 little objects and doodads and clutter and that mess. I am up to 790 objects. We still have the garage to do. That's going to be a huge looming project. That's a weekend gone. This past week we acquired chickens. We have new baby chicks, and we put in our seedlings for our garden, so we have house and life things happening here. I'm still doing my physical therapy, and I want to, as always, send love out to all my physical therapy brothers and sisters out there, whether it's your hip, your elbow, your knee, your ankle, your wrist, whatever you're doing physical therapy for. Remember, the most important exercise is the exercise that you aren't doing. Do all of your exercises, whether you like it or not. And remember to exercise your attitude. If you do it positively, it will always be better for you than if you do it full of anger and hate and angst. Dyeing. I started to dye today, and some days you've got it and some days you don't. And today is one of those days that I just don't have my magic on. And you can probably already see it in the podcast. I'm not myself. My head's not in the game the way it should be for me to produce and create and enjoy and feel like I'm creating a product that I'm proud of. And so as soon as I started to see that, as soon as I started to feel that my dye mojo was bad, I packed it all up. I decided that I was enough, that I do enough, that I am valuable enough, that I had done enough, and that pushing was not going to make me happy. It wasn't going to make the magic come, that I simply needed to love myself, give myself that break, and walk away. And so I did. And I'm happier for it. I'm happier for it. I took some time for myself. I called some family that I wanted to reach out to and say hi to, and I really spent some time breathing. And my product is going to be better for it, and my love of my product is already better for it. I don't now have product that I look at and feel was pushed or rushed or routine, and although I like what I produced, I'm surprisingly happy with what I did produce this morning. I'm going to love it more when I have the right energy about what I'm doing. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it if your mojo's not there. And I did that. I did that. But before I did that, I did film a quick segment. I had done a quick tutorial with you guys a couple of episodes back where I showed you a technique for a blank where I apply dye to different sides of the blank laying flat in my roasting pan, and showed you the resist technique where I have all these folds that I can then go back and airbrush into. And so I filmed a segment that I'm going to insert here. Welcome to the kitchen. A couple of weeks ago I did a pan dye where I did two colors on a sock blank side to side. I scrunched it all up and I applied dye to one side and then the other side, and it got this interesting pattern on it. But it's not quite enough. It's tonal and I left a lot of blank spaces. So today I'm going to show you how I jazz this up by airbrushing it. I'm going to grab the camera, I'm going to bring it in, and you're going to watch me just add stuff to it. When it's something like this, when it's really obscure, I don't like to add very sharp imagery to it. Adding fish or words or mermaids or plants or something very distinct to it breaks it up and it makes it just a little too themey. For this I want something more abstract. I'm going to use the same sorts of stencils. I'm going to use trees and bubbles and that sort of thing. But by doing it in a more obscure manner rather than distinct pictures, it's going to break it up and add a lot of interest to the overall piece while adding color to the voids that I created through the resist folds. Come take a look. Like I said, I'm still using a lot of different shape stencils. I'm using some air-like patterns, some tree patterns, and some bubbles from some other nautical type shapes. And just spraying it on. Okay, so let's get an up-close look at what I've done. You saw me use 3 different stencils. You saw me use a bubbles stencil for an underwater scene. You saw me use a tree stencil. And you saw me use this curly, windy kind of stencil. Nothing was planned here. All I did was lay down whimsically wherever I felt like I wanted color and sprayed on. Mind you, whenever I use my airbrush, I always have my mask on. You are aspirating dye and chemicals into the air. Other than the color that I chose to use, nothing was planned. The whole thing is just whatever you feel like. And there isn't room for a perfectionist here. You also saw me shake off my stencil over the blank. That adds that speckled technique without putting more chemicals and more powder and dust into the air. There's also splatter all over my plastic. I'm going to just move the camera here to show you. There's splatters all over my plastic. I'm not going to wipe those down. I'm going to fold those right over before I steam this. That's just going to add more dimension to the end piece. What's happening here is I have really deep dyed, saturated dyed, all the way through in a number of places, leaving voids. Then I've airbrushed on top of that, and it's not permeating quite all the way through. That's what's going to give it this really neat speckled effect when it's knit up. Now I steam it. The beauty of working with blanks is really their whimsy. You can get all kinds of effects on the yarn that you can't get from a regular skein of yarn. Like I was saying last week when I was talking about wanting to do blanks in other weights, with a blank I can apply color in so many different ways that I can't on a skein just because of how the yarn lies in the end product. This is another colorway that I just did. I think I'm calling it Emerald City, and I'm probably not going to airbrush anything more onto it. You can see it's fresh out of my oven, it's steaming hot. And again, what I did was I laid the blanks parallel in my pan. I applied dye to the outside between the two and up through the middle between the two, so that I got a side-to-side kind of effect. And then I just added some extra color over the top to get more of a sprinkled effect. Lovely, very excited about it. It has some really neat tones to it that I never could have gotten through skein dyeing. Certainly, give blanks a try, they're a lot of fun. And don't be afraid if things aren't matchy-matchy and perfect. You saw what I just did with the airbrush and the stencils. Yeah, you can plan and you can create a perfect exact scene, but as soon as you get one drop that drips on it, you're gonna feel crushed. Free yourself. Throw some dye around. Carefully, don't stain your kitchen. And just have fun. The magic that happens in it, the extra colors that you get that are unexpected, are well worth it. It's so much fun. So that's that. Really, when I'm accenting a blank, when I'm doing anything like that, I let it be really whimsical. I try not to force a pattern onto it or force a theme onto it. I just add color to enrich the overall look of it, to give it that little extra something versus just the initial dye. The initial dye was lovely. I would have loved to have worked with it. Now it's something more. Now it's got something extra about it that I enjoy. That's all it is. And if you're content with it, be content with it and enjoy it. If it feels like it's missing something, play with it. Have some fun. Add something more to it. That's that. Knitting. I did some knitting this week. I'm very happy. I'm still working on my posture. I'm still working on my physical therapy. I am still battling this shoulder injury that I've talked about forever now. But I'm starting to knit again. And last week when I talked to you guys, I had done a little bit of knitting. I had turned my heel on my Coexist Socks, and I had set a week goal that I was going to get through the gusset and maybe onto the foot. And that's exactly what I did. And when I got there, I stopped. I said, that is enough. I have accomplished my goal. Enough. Everything's enough. Enough is a good thing. Everybody should feel that they are enough. Everybody should feel that they do enough. And if you question yourself, if you don't feel that you do enough or are enough, stop and take a look at what you expect from others and realize that you are enough and that you do enough and that you're everything that you need to be. You breathe. That's all that we need. That's all that we need. I finished my gusset, ta-da! And I get down onto my foot, ta-da! And I'm very happy. I love the Coexist Socks pattern. This is free. It's available on Ravelry. And it's fun because it's a pick your own path. I'm enjoying it. I am doing the second sock identical to the first. There's my first sock. And I'm about to here on the second one. So I just have this left to go. And like I said last week, this is going to be really a landmark in my life, a timestamp, that this was before my shoulder problem and this is after my shoulder problem. And that I will have evolved and become a better knitter and healthier person around this project. I'm excited about that. I like having things that I can look at and they're a timestamp in my life for things that I learned or that I did. Yesterday, also this past week, yesterday, I did some other knitting. So Scott and John over at Sweet Tea No Shade podcast, I love you guys, hello! They're hosting a Cowl, tongue twister guys, Cowl. It's a knit along of a cowl. And I happen to be one of the sponsors for prizes and I thought it would be really fun to participate. And with the shoulder thing, I've been kind of bummed because I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this, and I really want to participate in knit-alongs. I like having the structure of a start and an end time and digging in and having this goal, this project. And I was thinking about it yesterday, and I decided to go stash diving. And I had that skein of yarn that I showed you guys that I had ordered in, they got me the free shipping. You have to do that. You have to add that extra skein if it's going to get you free shipping. And that was the Malabrigo Machita. I'm killing this, I know, in the color Mandragoria. Beautiful, beautiful yarn. This is it all caked up. I think it's stunning. It's beautiful purples, but of course, like all Malabrigo, it has blues and golds, and like their variegated colors are amazing. They have so many depth layers, and just, it's a stunning, stunning yarn. It's blowing out really more, well, no, it's purple. It's, yeah, it looks like it's pretty true to the color. Anywho, I had this, and I was thinking initially that I wanted to do a cowl in it before I even considered doing the cowl along. And I was thinking, you know, I need to be kind to myself. And knitting a cowl in fingering weight, that's a lot of knitting, and I really have some limits here. I need to be good to myself. And so I decided, inspired by a hat that John from Sweet Tea No Shade had recently knit. He'd held 2 yarns together, and it was stunning, really beautiful. If you haven't seen it, pop over. I think he has it up on his project page on Ravelry as well. But the colors just married so beautifully together, and I thought, I love these colors, but they're not particularly good colors on me. I don't wear purple well, but I love it. And how can I make this work for me? Can I hold this together with another yarn and make it something that is flattering for me to wear? And so I went stash diving, and I found a yarn that I bought, gosh, I bought it in Durango. We had gone up to Colorado on a trip, gosh, it's been a couple years now. And we popped into the yarn store in Durango, Yarn Durango. And I picked up a skein of, what is this? Palouse Yarn Company, hand dyed in Moscow, Idaho. It is 100% superwash merino, same as the Malabrigo base. It is a single, same as the Malabrigo base, so I've got 2 similar yarns working together. And it is in this beautiful colorway, walnut. Is that not a beautiful, beautiful brown? I wear brown. Brown works very well on my coloring. And so I held these 2 yarns together. There is browns in this. It complemented beautifully. And I sat down and I cast on a cowl. And I was mindful of what kind of a cowl I wanted. All winter I've been wearing cowls and scarves, and I thought, I want one in colors that work for me. I want it more in browns and colors that match my complexion. And although I like double wrapping cowls and I like scarves, I find that I'm wrapping my scarves really tight around my neck, and I'm double and sometimes triple wrapping cowls because I want it close to my neck. I want more of a neck warmer than a draping cowl. And so I cast on specifically and improvised, and I made a cowl for me. And there's my cowl. And I just held the 2 yarns together. I liked the gauge I got when I used a US size 8 needle. And I took notes. I've already had a number of people contact me based on pictures from Instagram saying, what's the pattern? It's coming. I'm going to write this up, and I am going to make it available. And because it was so inspired by Scott and John and by their cowl knit along, I'm going to name it in honor of them. The name is not yet totally squared away, but it's going to be very much in honor of them. And I want to thank you both, Scott and John. I sat down, I knocked this out in an afternoon. It was probably more knitting than I should have done for my shoulder. My shoulder doesn't hurt today. I did it all day yesterday, and I'm very happy. But I have this product that I love. And it's the first project I've done since my shoulder injury, start to finish. And it's very much for me. It's very much something that I love and that I will use. And I'm so happy with it. Thank you for hosting the Cowl, for showing your projects, for inspiring it. Thank you. And so, ta-da! I have a nice close-fitting cowl that works very much with my coloring, that is yarns that I love, that I'm happy with, and I have enough yarn left over that I can knit a second version of this that's a little bit more winter, that's a little bit taller. I think I do want one that's maybe, I'm not sure if I'm going to fan out at the collar down here so that it tucks into my jacket a little bit more and have some extra height, or if I'm just going to make it with more height so that it scrunches down even more and I've got a whole pile of accordion neck to keep me nice and warm. But this is a nice casual one that will tuck into my jacket when I've got my collar up and will keep my neck nice and warm. And it does need to be blocked. I'm sure you guys saw the tails. I trim my tails. I leave 1.5 to 2 inches. I block my piece so that what's woven in already blocks into the shape of the stitches, so that when I block, if it pulls in or out anymore, that's all blocked in, and then I trim my tail. Some people don't weave in their ends until after they've blocked. Personally, I think that's a mistake, because then what you've woven in isn't following the shape of the stitches. It's not set to that. I believe firmly that the best method is to weave in, trim but not tight, block, and then do your final trim. That's me. That's my suggestion. Do what you want to do what works for you. So, I knit a thing. I'm very excited I have a thing. And definitely go over, check out their podcast. If you haven't already watched Sweet Tea No Shade, you are missing out. They are a riot. I just love the guys. And the Cowl is on, I believe, until April 30th. We have plenty of time. I may even put in a second entry. I literally did this in under 6 hours. You can too. So check them out. They're awesome. This week's topic. So I named this episode Enough. Primarily because I was being hard on myself and I didn't feel like I was doing enough. I didn't feel like I was dyeing enough yarn for my shop. I didn't feel like the colors were enough or were exciting enough. And I started to really give myself some guilt and some pressure that's not right. Not right. And so I released that. And this episode is not going to be perfect. I'm still not in my groove. I still don't feel like I'm enough. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I'm here. I'm in the arena, I'm showing up, I'm doing this, and you are enough for me, and this project is enough for me, and that makes me happy, and that's all that matters. Last week I talked to y'all about investment and taking time to make sure that the project that you're doing is a good investment, a wise investment for you. And I gave the example of knitting a sweater and having $80 a yarn and 80 hours of work at $10 an hour and having basically a sweater that had a investment value of $880 and justifying it and making smart decisions for yourself about your knitting and the value of what you're doing and the worth of what you're doing. And I got thinking a little bit deeper about it. And I talked to you guys also about classic versus trend. And I showed you some pictures of little Jessie in her sweater from far too many years ago to announce. And I was talking to my mother who hand knit that sweater for me. And she mentioned something really interesting to me. That beautiful sweater that I was wearing in those pictures, that beautiful sweater that I have such fond memories of, that is a classic, that is traditional, that, how do I say this? It's meaningful. It's one of those timestamps in my world. There's a secret about that sweater. It was acrylic. There is a time and a place for everything. And there's a lot of pressure in the knitting industry on people to use wool. I am a hand dyer. I'm an indie dyer. I sell wool. I sell wool blends. There's nylon in them. There's silk in them. Sometimes there's cashmere. Sometimes it's multiple blends. But I'm part of the pressure problem. In that I'm retailing that wool and I want you to buy my product. But it's really important to realize that not every project is wool worthy. And not every budget is wool worthy. And not every situation is wool worthy. That there is a time and a place for every material, whether it's cotton, whether it's rayon, whether it is a novelty yarn. Novelty yarns are beautiful, they're fun, they don't belong in a boardroom. They just don't. There's a time and a place for everything. And there most certainly is a time and a place for acrylic. I want to stress that. I think that there is I'm going to use ugly words. There is a snobbery about wool. There is a pressure about wool. There is a cutting of decisiveness that knitters are somehow not real knitters if they don't use wool. And that's not fair. That's not right. That's inappropriate. And it's abusive, honestly. It's abusive. There are people out there who are beautiful, wonderful, amazing, talented knitters that use acrylic because that's what works in their budget, or that's what works in their lifestyle, or that is appropriate for that article, that design, that project. I designed in acrylic for years because I had a fiber allergy that we could not pin down. And the reality of the matter was, I'm allergic to alpaca. None of my yarns will have alpaca in them. None of the yarns that I sell will have alpaca in them. Alpaca makes my skin blister. Whether it's a blend or a full, when I walk into a yarn store, one of the first things I usually do is ask if the fibers are separated in groups or if it's grouped by size. Because I need to know where that alpaca is so that I don't touch it. Had I known that years ago when I started designing, I would have used merino right from the start. I love it, it's beautiful, and for some projects it's appropriate. I started with acrylic because that's what I could use. And as a designer, I want to really emphasize that just because the pattern is written for wool doesn't mean it can't be done in acrylic, and vice versa. Use the base, use the material that works for you. And be mindful of what that end product is going to do. I would not knit a cashmere blanket for a baby. Why would you? Unless that baby's made out of plastic, at some point there is going to be a mess that is going to stain or need cleaning. And that may not come out. That's a problem. Likewise, I wouldn't knit a blanket for royalty out of acrylic. I would put my best foot forward in the highest quality piece that I had. Time and a place for everything. Everything has a point of appropriateness. To that end, the sweater that I was wearing as little Jessie at the beach was a beautiful Aran sweater knit with traditional stitches. And from that photo, you can't tell. You can't tell whether it was made out of wool or it was made out of acrylic. At that time when it was made, acrylic was widely available, wool was not. And I was a child at the beach on a picnic. Is a white wool sweater appropriate for a child at the beach at a picnic with ketchup and mustard? No, no, no. Is it a beautiful romantic image? Beautiful white Aran wool sweater at the beach? Absolutely. Time and a place for everything. And I was realizing recently, I've made myself a couple sweaters now. And they're out of hand-dyed wools. They're beautiful. I love my sweaters. I'm not wearing them. I wear them if I have a special occasion. I wear them if we're going out to dinner. I wear them if I have a meeting that I want to go to, or I have a creative event that I want to show off my work. But I don't wear them every day around the house. I have 3 dogs. 2 of them are short hair, and they shed like trees in the fall. There is never, ever a time that there is not hair on my house. Never. When I get home from work, every night, the first thing I do is peel off my logo wear that I have to wear at work, and I pull on a pair of comfy leggings, sometimes they're sweatpants, and I pull on a big sweater. I am usually cold after work. I don't know what it is. I think it's fatigue and stress. Those sweaters that I'm pulling on are inexpensive, pulled out of shape, things that I got at a department store that are made out of acrylic. Why? Because I'm a human. Because I'm going to sit on my sofa with my dog's head in my lap, who is shedding horribly, and all of his little fibers are going to weave their way into my sweater. And then I'm going to balance my dinner in my lap, and I'm going to eat it in front of the TV. And I'm going to slobber on myself. And my dog is going to slobber on me, and my husband is going to spill something on me. And the reality is, as much as I would love to be sitting on my sofa in my hand-knit, hand-dyed wool sweater, it's not practical, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. And I've been thinking a lot lately about how much I would like to have a really nice, big, squishy, warm sweater that I made, that I could wear after work, that if it has dog food on it and I spill tomato soup on it, no big whoop. And so I went stash diving, and I found an old collection of some acrylic yarn that I have. And I'm going to pull it up. I have a box of it. It is Vanna's Choice in a purple. And I've got a bunch of skeins of this. And I bought it because I love the color. And I bought it because it was a nice thick worsted weight. It's probably actually closer to an Aran looking at it. And I bought it because it's machine washable. I think I'm going to knit myself an acrylic sweater for knocking about the house for the right reasons. That I can throw in my washer, that I can throw in my dryer, that's only going to get softer every time it gets abused by the washing machine and the dryer, that's not going to shrink, and that I am comfortable pouring my tomato soup on and letting my dog's hair weave into, so that I can appreciate and enjoy my art and my craft in my home whenever I want without fear. And this sweater, acrylic or not, is going to be enough. It's going to fulfill that need. It has its time and it has its place. I'm not giving myself permission to do this. I have all the permission and right to do it ever. What I'm doing is I'm giving you permission. I'm telling you, as a designer, as a indie wool dyer, that this is just as valuable as this. And I don't think any differently of you. If this is the only product you work with, I think differently of you if you assume that this is the only product you should work with. And I want to just emphasize the time and a place for everything, and when something is enough. When you're enough, when your product is enough, when your design is enough, when your material is enough for that time and that place. That's that. And think different. Think differently. Take everything into consideration. That's that. That's my weekly rant, as it were. Moving on, I don't have a lot for you this week. I do want to thank you all for those who have come forward and given me feedback about doing blanks in the heavier weights. I'm very curious about it. I've had feedback in both directions. This is something I'm going to take more time and put more research into. It is not a done deal one way or the other yet. Certainly, if you have an opinion about it, I'd love to hear it. If you have feedback or experience with it, I would love to hear about it. My thought is, and just to bring it back, if you're new to this, I'm thinking about purchasing a knitting machine to make blanks in either DK or worsted weights or both, and dyeing them like blanks, because dyeing blanks is very different than dyeing skeins, and just having that as an available product. But I want you to be very honest with me, and if it's not a product that you would ever be interested in, let me know so I don't waste my time and energy. I also did a call out last week for interest in whether or not you'd be interested in doing a design along. And I did have some positive feedback about that, and now I'm just trying to figure out how exactly that would work. It was suggested to me, thank you very much, that we could do this as kind of a pick your own path, or as a active democracy. That we could vote on what our first project would be. We could do multiple design alongs over time, and that with each project we would have okay, we're at this point, you have these options, let's all vote or do whatever you want, and here is how we proceed with the next section. I would love to hear your feedback. If you have been part of a design along in the past, educate me. Let me know how this all works, or what worked for you in the past or what didn't work. If you had something that you participated in or you hosted and it didn't work, I would love to hear from you. I would love to go at this in a way that works for everybody. So your suggestions and your feedback will make this fun and successful, we hope. That's what I have this week. I am writing this up. I will get this pattern knocked together. I do want to let you all know that Bow Truckle did go live. The Bow Truckle hat pattern is available on Ravelry now. Thank you to all of my test knitters. Your feedback, your assistance, your edits mean the world to me. It made a better product. It made a better pattern. You are a part of my success. Thank you. And finally, if you're not familiar with my Patreon page, please have a visit, go over, consider offering your support. This is a project that I'm doing in order to get the funding and the equipment and everything necessary to be able to offer classes to all of you. There are benefits at every level. The chances are very high in the drawing levels that you'll be a winner. One level has like a 50% chance that you could win. Another level recently dropped to 33.33% chance that you could win. But if the winner is a particular young man, his prize might go to his mother so that he is forced to visit her. You know who I'm talking about. Next drawing is April 7th. Certainly check it out. The subscription level did ship. I do still need to ship to a couple other people who are scattered about the country, and I'm gonna make it worth your while. I'm so sorry, this week just blew by. I did my taxes. I was a good monkey. I did my taxes, but that ate up a lot of my spare time, and so I did not create the wonderful gift boxes And honestly, we're so close to April 7th now, I may wait until the next drawing, because looking at the levels that I need to ship out, you may win again. And then I could just ship one giant package to you. That's that. That's everything I have for you guys today. I just want to remind you that you are enough. You do enough, and you don't need to try any harder than you do already. You are. Thank you. I love you, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.
Pack it, pump it, pack it, pump it, pack it, pump it, boom, told to have a heart.